How do you really tackle corruption? Is it with a big, loud declaration of war, or is it with the quiet, nitty-gritty work of building better institutions? We're going to break down an article today that argues in the Philippines, this isn't just about style, it's the huge difference between what it calls failure and what it calls progress. And this is really the big question the source article throws at us. It frames the entire debate as a choice. Do you rally people with these powerful, catchy slogans? Or do you get in there and build the slow, methodical systems that are actually designed to stop graft before it even starts? Let's see how the article breaks it all down. So here's how we're going to walk through the article's argument. First, we'll define what it means by slogans versus systems. Then we'll dive into the so-called slogan era that it critiques and contrast that with the system era it praises. We'll also touch on some of the key figures named in the piece, and then finally, see what the article's final verdict really is. All right, so first things first, how does the article actually define these two competing ideas? What is a slogan approach versus a system approach? Okay, so here's how the article really splits these two ideas apart. On one side, you've got the slogan approach. It's all about personality, big public declarations, high-profile rhetoric. The source even gives it this pretty memorable nickname, karaoke politics. But on the other side, you've got the system approach. This is all about boring stuff, right? Institutional procedures, rules, transparent guardrails. The article argues this is the real difference between just a performance and what it calls actual governance. And to really hammer this point home, the article pulls out this powerful Filipino phrase, "Pudol usok walang apoy." It translates to all smoke, no fire. And, that's a pretty perfect summary of how the source views the anti-corruption efforts of the previous administration. So what does that all smoke, no fire approach actually look like in practice? Well, the article points its finger directly at the previous Duterte administration, labeling that whole period the slogan era. Now, according to the source, the results just weren't there. It claims the main anti-corruption body, the PACC, was basically a watchdog without teeth. The article goes on to allege that there were 0 major convictions and 0 recovered funds. In fact, it argues that corruption actually thrived, and it uses the Farmally scandal as its Exhibit A. To show you the scale of this Farmally scandal, the source puts a pretty staggering number on the table, 11.7 billion pesos. It claims this was the value of pandemic-related government contracts that were awarded to this one company. Just keep that number in your head. And then, right after that, the article hits you with this number, 625,000 pesos. That, it claims, was the company's starting capital. According to the source, that huge, massive gap between the company's capital and the contracts it won, well, that's the very heart of the scandal. Okay, so after laying out all the problems with the slogan era, the article completely pivots to what it presents as the solution, the system era, and it highlights specific reforms from the current Marcos and Romualdez administration as the better alternative. So the first big systemic fix the source points to is this thing called the ICI, the Independent Commission for Infrastructure. The idea here is all about proactive prevention. It's pitched as this body that independently audits big public works projects to stop money from being misused before it even happens. The second major reform the article really praises is this policy called Open BICAM. Now, this one's all about the national budget, specifically this thing called the Bicameral Conference Committee. It's where these huge final budget decisions often get made, usually behind closed doors. The source claims that by letting the media and civil society in, this policy forces transparency, making it way harder for any secret insertions or sketchy backroom deals to go down. Now, the article's critique isn't just about abstract policies and ideas. It also points to specific individuals. So let's take a look at the key figures it names and the allegations that it connects directly to them. All right, let's just break down what's on the screen here, and I have to stress, these are all allegations cited directly in the source material we're analyzing. It connects Paulo Duterte to 51 billion pesos in unexplained infrastructure funds and Sara Duterte to 612.5 million pesos in confidential funds. The article also claims a firm linked to Bangko's family got 6.6 billion in contracts, and it names Greco-Belgica as the guy who led that quote-unquote ineffective PACC. So after all of that, what's the article's final take? Well, it pretty much boils everything down to a really stark side-by-side comparison. And here it is, the article's bottom line. It paints the Duterte era as one of inaction. No systems, no convictions, no recovered funds. And then it contrasts that directly with the Marcos and Romualdez administration, presenting it as one of action, building these big institutional reforms like the ICI and Open BECAM. According to the source, it's a clear comparison of rhetoric versus results.
So when you get right down to it, the source is framing this as a choice between two totally different philosophies. Is fighting corruption all about performance and a good show? Or is it about prevention and building these durable systems that are designed to outlast any single politician?
So the article's big takeaway is pretty clear. Systems are more durable than slogans. But that leaves us with a huge question, one the article doesn't answer. Will these new systems actually last? And will they prove to be effective in the long run? That's the real test.